Hi there. Hello, everybody. Good to see you today. It is Saturday, July 20, 20, I was going to say 19 something. What does that tell you? I'm old. 2024. I think my volume's up. Trying to make sure I checked that pretty well as I was starting up today. Okay, so yeah, it's a beautiful day out there. We were in a bit of a heat, kind of a tropical feel for a while there, for a couple of weeks, and a couple nights ago that sort of broke. So we still have nice summer warmth, but the air is dry, the breeze is blowing, and great summer weather right now. So anyway, great to see you as you're all filing in. Give a few minutes. I'll give my intro because all of you who are filing in are my usual students and who actually join me live at noon on Saturdays. I have many more who view later on, but always like to have my core classmates here. So today I thought we'd take a little break. Last week I did Parkinson's disease, and that was very in-depth and very, very heavy, kind of really heavy stuff. This time I'm going to do just kind of a walk through the garden, Wildflowers of New Hampshire, just very brief and not terribly in depth at all. But first, let me just introduce myself. Becky Rebecca Montrone, grew up here in Keene, New Hampshire, as did my husband, Dale Montrone, and we left to follow his career when we first got married in the early 80s and came back to Keene in 2000, well, to this area, to Monadnock region in 2009, to Stoddard, actually, because my father had fallen ill and that's where he lived. And then my practice was, I was managing my practice as that was all going on in different locations. Started in Londonderry, New Hampshire, and then moved it to Connecticut when we were in Connecticut for a year, and we intended to stay there, but that's when Dad got sick. And we came back. So that's how we ended up back here to our wondrous roots, which we never really anticipated. That's how delightful God is in his surprises, because I kind of got a sense that he was smiling and his eyes were twinkling when we ended up back here because of the name Wondrous Roots, right? So Dale and I were both born here 3 years apart in the same hospital right here on Main Street. So the house that I lived in when I was born, so right over here on Main Street, which less than a mile, was the hospital then that we were born in. And then right over here, less than a mile, was the house my parents lived in when I was born. And right over here, you can practically see it from this window, is the building that was the school his father taught industrial arts in. And right down here, even closer, much closer than the hospital that Dale and I were born in, was my father's pharmacy for 49 years. And his father's before him right down the road. So do you get it? Like Wondrous Roots, it's really kind of, it's kind of funny. It's kind of wonderfully funny. So anyway, we have a practice here in Keene, New Hampshire, up on the 3rd floor of the Miller Forge building on Roxbury Street called Wondrous Roots. And I have a degree in holistic nutrition. I am an herbalist as well. So make a lot of different products based on botanicals, plants. And whether they be things that you take internally, things you put in your eyes, things you put on your skin, that kind of thing. And that's a lot of fun. And then we also have, I see clients in consultation for health problems of all kinds. And I use things that are, my scope of, my toolkit is much broader than herbal medicine for that. So use a lot of nutrients, amino acids, minerals, vitamins, things like that. And those of you who know me know all about that. But again, if you're maybe seeing me for the first time, you're watching on either Rumble or YouTube, that's what I do. And you can reach me here, 603-439-2603. I have 2 websites, wondrousroots.org, which is kind of my main website, but then probably the much larger website is shopwondrousroots.com. You can get to one from the other, so there's no problem that way. But been really happy because I've been getting informational files up on my wondrousroots.org, which is my passion. As you all know, who know me, my passion is sharing information. If you come and you sit in here with me, you're going like I'm talking a mile a minute. I'm printing out stuff for you and I'm putting together a folder and then I'm drawing diagrams on the whiteboard. And I love teaching and I love sharing information because it's so exciting because we have so much more power and control over our health and subsequently, right, as a result of that, over our lives and those that we get to influence our families. And it's just really, 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 really wonderful. But that's my passion. So I'm getting those things up, and I think I'm just going to share my screen for a minute. I actually am going to end up sharing anyway, but I maybe share and come back and then go back. But anyway, okay, I got to finish my intro. All right, like I told you, I talk a mile a minute. All right, so our number here is 603-439-2603. You can reach out to me from either of the websites. If you go to contact us, it comes to my private email. So nobody else has any access to those messages. They wouldn't even know where to look for them. It comes to my email, and I will get back to you. I will say I am, my schedule is very full. I do see people long distance, a lot of people, many clients I will never ever meet in person. So that's not a problem. Usually I use Zoom, but if somebody's can't use Zoom, we can use the telephone. That's all well and good. I am booking into the later part of September at this point in time. I think last night when I left the office, I'm 102 appointments out on my calendar. So I'm just so you know, if you think you want to work with me, get in touch before. Now, I've had probably 3 emergent cancer cases in the past week. I think we're seeing a great uptick in cancer, but anyway. And if you have a problem that is very imminent, please don't say, well, she can't see me until, no, I will always make it work. If you have something going on like that, I don't care what I have to do, we'll make that work. So there you go, 603-439-2603. Again, the websites you can reach out to me. Okay, there, I think I covered that very well. Here at the building, we have easy access. We have elevator and stairwell open up to come right out to our office door. Main door is right there. So we're very handicap accessible. Excellent, big, huge parking lot with free parking, which is a commodity here in downtown Keene. So anyway, okay, good. So I wanted to just show you again, because I'm excited about this, and the informational files are really helping me, even when I'm answering people's questions, because I get a lot of questions in my email. What do I do about this? What do I do about that? Sometimes I feel literally like the Dear Abby of healthcare, but that's fine. I enjoy sharing information. You guys know that, but it really helps me to be able to utilize these things myself, because I'm usually digging into my files, pulling out the PDFs, and every little step you have to do takes more time, right? So I'm just going to share my screen for a minute and show you how far I've come on the on all of that. So let's go here. Okay. Excuse me. Now I'll share my screen. Share. Here we go. No, I've done this before, but just want to point out a few things, because I was showing this to somebody, a client in my office yesterday, and she was like, oh, I had no idea. I didn't even know. People have said to me, I didn't even know you have websites. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, this is how far I've come. And I have much more to put up here, but you will see here, say on Parkinson's disease, since I did that program last week, you can find this is the YouTube link. It's also on Rumble. Here you've got the PDF with all of the links. So that was what I used when I was speaking. Then here I was able to put in this is actually a testimony by somebody I've been working with Parkinson's for quite some time. And then you can just run down my list. You can see a lot of information. And this is the kind of information that I have. Like when I'm researching something, I stick it into my research files. So this is what I'm doing over time, is just uploading those things. And these pages will always be changing because so this is not a stagnant page. I'll read something more about Parkinson's and it will immediately go into my files on my computer and it will go here. And so it makes it really nice because somebody said to me, okay, this is an example. This is a question I got this week. She wants to work with me, but I can't see her right away, but she really wants to get off her antidepressants and onto her, and using natural things. And so she tells me what she's doing. I'm like, maybe I can advise you in the meantime, this is what you can do. And I was telling her about lithium. And I did a program on that a while ago. And so I was able to email her, about lithium. I was able to email her specific things that I pointed out, not just like, you have to go through all my my files, but then I'll say I want her to have this one or that one, and then I can do that too, but then I can just send the link. And then she comes back, I don't know, a day or so later and says that she doesn't know if she wants to take the lithium because she read that it can be bad for the thyroid. So then I was able to tell her, and I should put that up here. I should just type that in there because that's a common thing. When it comes to lithium, people are like, oh, I went on the web and I read that you can impair your thyroid function. So I'm scared to use it. People are scared basically when you say lithium anyway, right? Because they don't understand it's just a trace mineral and we all need it in trace amounts. But so she says, I'm worried about it. So I explained to her that the problem is that lithium and iodine, which nourishes the thyroid gland, use the same pathway for absorption. So if you take them at the same time, they can impair each other's absorption, one another's absorption. So you don't get the best of either. So, but we had never talked about iodine because this was just answering an email question in the course of the day. And, then she said, well, I can't remember. Did we talk about iodine? And I said, no, we didn't, but here you go. You can go to and I just, went to my iodine selenium page. And I said, you can learn more about that. Here's the link to my page. Boom. Right. Otherwise, that would have been 15 minutes of, I got to get her this file on iodine and this and that and blah, 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 blah. So this is making life much more efficient for myself. So anyway, I'm going to stop my share for a second and come back to you. So anyway, be aware, do that. I'm also utilizing my blog. I'm going to be utilizing my blog a lot more. So do be aware of that. For the blogs, for these blogs now, when I do a blog, I'm going to also send them out like I did last Sunday, the one on the MSM eye drops, because I don't have all of my subscription on my website that I do the blog on. So I just will redo it, but you can always check in there on the blog page. So I'm hoping that you will take advantage of this resource, because it's pretty substantial and it's going to be getting even more and more so as I unload my brain onto it. So there we go. Okay, so let's walk through the garden. Share my screen again. Oh, again, to participate, you can raise your hand and speak. You can, and Joe, I will be watching. If you go to raise your hand, I'll be watching this time. And you can type in the chat, as a lot of you do. You can also go to the Q&A, and that's sort of similar. I will see it myself and answer. Okay, so I want to go to, I think I'll close some windows out so I don't have so much bandwidth going on here, being eaten up. Do that. And then where am I going to get this PDF? Oh, yes. Educational presentations. can actually just go to my, again, I should have probably prepared this ahead of time, but I didn't. Okay, there I am. Okay, now I can go here and share my screen to there. Good. So again, I did this for the Stoddard Garden Club, and I looked, and I did this in 2010. So I was living in Stoddard. I was working out of the house in Stoddard. My father was still alive. He didn't pass away until 2011. Then we came here, moved here to Keene, the business anyway, to Keene in 2012. But so I had kind of just this information here, but today I went through and I added some more in-depth information about each of these plants. These photos were all taken either in Windham when we were living there right before we moved to Connecticut for that year, and then Stoddard after that. Mary Wrench, my dad's widow now, who works here with us, is she and I would take walks up in Stoddard every morning, generally every morning, and took the camera with us and took some photos. These were taken by a teenager, actually, the ones from Windham, who took she took her camera with her when we did a weed walk in the vast woods behind our house in Windham, New Hampshire, that bordered a conservation land area. And we got lost. We were out there for like 2 hours more than we intended. And there were times when I was like, I don't know how the heck we're going to get out of here. So if you go on a weed walk, you might want to go with a better guide than me. Anyway, we had a lot of fun. And we laughed hysterically when we got back to the house and had some refreshments. Okay, so the black-eyed Susan. So we see this everywhere in New England, and I'm sure it grows elsewhere. But we think I do, like I say, we tend to think of Echinacea or elderberry or turmeric or chamomile. There are certain things we think of as medicinal herbs, and we tend to think of them as being this special class of medicinal herbs. And then there's everything else. They're pretty. They're just pretty, and I love to have them in my garden, kind of thing. But and many of you, I'm sure, know this, but it might have been more surprising to me to find this out than it is for many of you. But suffice to say that there are things we take for granted all around us. And I know I've said this before too, and that is that when I go to herbal conferences, you would get a master herbalist like David Winston or Matthew Wood, and they take you out, so your session, if you signed up for the weed walk, your class, you go out and they take you wherever your conference is being held. And they usually held them in, places that were very, compatible with herbalism. So anyway, you would go out and you would just walk along, and you'd be walking along the side of the road, and they would stop and instruct you about all of these medicinal plants. And I know I've said this before, but you would be out there for an hour and maybe get 15 feet. I mean, you would not go very far. And that's kind of a good way of explaining what a wealth of medicine is in the side of the road that you're looking at as you drive along, or you're taking a walk and you're just not even aware that this is the medicine that God put in creation so that people could treat their ailments and remain healthy, and in some mysterious way has managed to communicate that to peoples of all cultures across the world, whether it's traditional Chinese medicine, or out of China and the Asian countries, or whether it is Ayurvedic medicine out of India and those similar countries, or whether it is Native American herbalism, Western herbalism that we have here, or whether the European traditions. So wherever people have been, they've figured out how to use the things around them. And maybe a lot of the reason that doesn't come so naturally to us now is perhaps because we are the idea that nature is medicine has been removed from how we think of medicine. So we think of prescriptions, we think of Rite Aid, we think of CVS, we think of I need medicine, we think of pharmaceuticals. Many pharmaceuticals have, if maybe not most, have some of their, can be traced back to plants and natural botanical medicine. And when I say that, let me just stop my share for a second. When I say that, I'd like to go in a little bit deeper. Okay, so when I'm trying to find out what works better for a certain cancer, what I will do is, oh, thanks, Debbie. She really said she really enjoyed getting the blog on MSM. And I'm going to be doing a lot more than that, just like short little blurbs about things. Oh, okay. Since Debbie said that, I'm going to digress for a second. Remember, I talked about PEA, palmitoyl ethanolamide. That was the one I did a program with sea buckthorn oil. I talked about cucumber seed for bone health. And then at the end, I brought up PEA, which I had just learned about, palmitoyl ethanolamide. And I was like, I can't pronounce it. So then I practiced it. I can pronounce it. I can spell it. Doesn't that, it's fun to say, palmitoyl ethanolamide. Anyway, I was excited about it because I was like, if this works for pain the way they say it does, especially for things like neuropathy, and regardless of the cause, and this is completely natural, it's something endogenously we make, but when we use more of it, we can get a therapeutic effect. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was like so excited. And then I had a chance, I've got a few people on it, but this was the first one that I got a remarkable, feedback from. So I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see here. To this blog. Okay, I probably could have just not even changed. Oh yeah, I wasn't sharing. Okay, so there we are. So if you go to the blog, you can see these. So once they're posted, so this is the one on MSM that I did. This is the one that I did the week before on this PEA. So you can click on there. I was like, at last, an amazingly effective and natural treatment for chronic pain. And then I talk about how I found out knowing about this. I was talking with my compound pharmacist friend, and he mentioned PEA in this. Well, you might find this interesting, so I'm going to tell it. So Gene Gresh, so I know him through my dad, George Wrench, a compound pharmacist. And Gene is one of my father's, like Peter, James, and John, sort of the guys he mentored so closely in the craft. And Gene always says, it wasn't so much what George told me, it was George taught me how to think. And that's such an important thing. What are the questions you ask when you want to know about something? And so, anyway, how you think. But I was asking for his input for someone who had recently developed a neuropathy due to a neurotoxic reaction to the antibiotic nitrofurantoin. And that was actually my daughter, Krista, and she doesn't mind my sharing that. And she's going to be joining, she's moving here next week, and she's joining Wondrous Roots. She'll probably be on board full-time within a month. As she's getting scheduled, and super excited about that. She'll be on many of the Zooms with me, not all of them, but some of them. So super excited about that. But she, anyway, so Jean was making a, let me actually, Jean said to me, because I told him about this, and we actually tied that, we'll eventually be able to tie that, Krista and I, getting more genetic detail about her catecholamine transferase defects, the problem with nitrofurantoin in people who have that type of an impairment in that gene. fascinating. We'll be sharing a lot with you about that when she comes on board. But anyway, so he mentioned a topical gel he had formulated using various ingredients mixed up in an ingenious way. And he used as part of the base the cream that we developed together, which is now when you come in and you buy the Feeling Good Lab pain cream, that's of the formula that Jean and I put together. And now it's mass marketed. But anyway, so he said he was using that and then he was adding certain things to it. And PEA was one of them, but I had never heard of it. So I remember writing it down. He's talking and I'm writing stuff down, notes as he's talking on the phone with me. And I said, I got to look into that. So I kept the piece of paper on my desk, but I'm busy, time's going by, and I keep seeing that PEA. I got to look into that. And then I looked into it, and that's what opened the world up for me. So anyway, so I found out all about this, and I tell you about that there. And the thing that's kind of nice about blogs is they're generally pretty short. But I want to get here, PEA in real life. So a gentleman who has suffered severely with back pain following degenerative spine conditions and surgery, in agony for 18 or so years since the surgery stopped in a few weeks ago. So he popped up. His wife comes in regularly to get things. She's a formal client, and I've met him before, but I just know that has a problem that is just has been insurmountable with his back. He had been unable to work for that period of time, 18 years. Pain medications do not take care of his pain, and most pain medications he cannot tolerate. Pain is a big problem. This is one of the major reasons we have an opiate problem. I mean, prior to the whole fentanyl issue with the border and all of that, but people getting prescribed opiates and getting addicted. That was the problem that we had, Purdue Pharma, way before the fentanyl crisis that we have right now. This was because of the overprescription of them. So pain is a huge problem. And right now for neuropathy, you basically get a prescription. You guys, if you've suffered with this, and a lot of you probably have who are listening one way or the other, gabapentin, and nothing really works well. And things have side effects and problems. Gabapentin is very bad for the brain. It can be a forerunner. It can weaken a person in their resistance to things like Alzheimer's disease, and they loop you up, and you don't anyway. So he's not been able to work for that period of time. Pain medications do not take care of his pain. Most you can't tolerate, and so just being left with severe, unrelenting pain. It has ruined his life. Just this past week when I wrote this, so that was a week ago, not last week, the week before, he stopped up again to tell me that 20 minutes after his first dose of PEA, he felt relief, and the relief has held while continuing to take the PEA 800 to 1200 milligrams daily. He said, as he told me, he says, I'm tearing up. He said, what happened was, he said, I still have, my aches, my regular muscle aches and pains from, when you do things, you get, right? You're not going to work out and your muscles, you're not going to feel your muscles. Not that he was working out, but you know what I'm saying? That type of pain, like I know I went to the gym because my arms are killing me, that kind of thing. He said that fried nerve, he had failed back surgery, that fried nerve pain was gone. He didn't even tell his wife because he was afraid to jinx it. But she overheard him telling his son, who has 2 weeks later, who has the same problem in his back. And she was like, why didn't you tell me? And he goes, I just wanted to make sure. But he's been using it daily. And he said he had a hard time remembering to take the middle of the day dose, because of the dose was 1200 milligrams a day. So I had people in mine are 400 milligram capsules. So I said, take 3. And he was taking 2. So, I mean, remarkably wonderful. This is fantastic. So anyway, that's the thing about the blog. You can go back and see other things. But again, I'm keeping up much more prolifically with my blog writing. I'll be doing at least one a week, and hope to do more than that for sure, because I have a lot of things to share about different things. As you well know, I'm bubbling over because that's what I love to do. Okay, so now let's go back. Yeah, we're still in the share. Now, one thing I do want to do is go up here and make sure I have my chat box. Whoops, I always do that. My chat box over here. Okay, so Susan is saying, I started PEA yesterday and last night, didn't wake up in pain, but also took Wondrous CBD blend. Now, I want to tell you about that. That's a great combination, and I recommend it because they're both working through the endocannabinoid system, but they're working differently. So it's a wonderful way to get the best of both worlds. If you're using PEA, is also to use CBD, cannabidiol, but you don't have to. In fact, in my research files on PEA, I have one that talks about how PEA is a good substitute for cannabidiol. For people, some people are weirded out about cannabis, whether it's psychoactive or non-psychoactive, or they're worried about their job or something. You know, CBD is perfectly legal and it's perfectly safe and it doesn't, but some people still feel weird about it. So it's been proposed as a replacement for CBD. So that is just really, really phenomenal. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with you, Susan, because yeah, and you have to let me know, because that is just really phenomenal. Again, pain, chronic pain is ruining people's lives. Many, and you have to admit, if you're not in chronic pain, if you don't have a chronic pain issue, if you do something to yourself and you have pain temporarily, oh, I got to tell you about that. We will get to the garden, but I know you're all interested in this. So I injured my foot about 6 weeks ago, and toes that I've injured before, and so they're weak, like my right foot. And I won't go into the whole long story, but anyway, I hit my foot and I think I broke my toe left next to the pinky toe. And so I buddy taped it and, was careful with my shoes and everything. And everything was healing up nicely over time. And then one day this week, I was making my bed and I hit my toe on the strip cord that was just tucked underneath it. And I was like, I did it again. Well, I didn't have any of our pain cream at the house, of course, physician heal thyself, but I remembered, and I'm thinking of you, Susan, because of when I talked about progesterone for pain, and you've been using progesterone cream on your hands. I had progesterone cream at home. So I just got that progesterone cream and rubbed it all into that area, my toe areas, the base, just rubbed that in really great. I could not believe it. Within a very short period of time, the pain was, I would say, gone. And it has pretty much helped. Like the next morning I went and I said, well, this is really good for the inflammation and the pain. So I did it again, but it's not like something I just have to, it wears off and I have to keep reapplying. So progesterone, we think of as a female hormone. We think about it with regard to reproduction, and it's super important for those things. But wow, as an anti-inflammatory, I would never have known, would never have thought of it unless I hadn't read it and then now tried it myself. So there you go. For what that's worth. I think it's worth a lot. I think that's just really awesome. So in any case, so let's get to our, so I was telling you about how most pharmaceuticals eventually come down to botany, but we're so far removed from that now. When you synthesize, we don't tend to think of it that way. But when I'm working with something, coming up with, how did I come up with formula C+ for cancer? Well, you say, what are the plants that are, a lot of times I'll go backwards. What are the drugs they're using for this particular cancer? And then you look and see what cancers, what pathways those are working through. Are they inhibiting BCL2 like proteins, as in the case of Rituxan for chronic lymphocytic leukemia? Or are they working through the JAK3 pathway, one of the STAT pathways for MS or for blood cancers or things like that? Or non-small cell lung cancer. I just had a new case of that this week, advanced non-small lung cell cancer, cell lung cancer. so what are the things they do? Is this a good fit? And you look, you find, then you research what plants inhibit those pathways. What does that? Sulforaphane is a big thing that we've talked about with Brad Hodgkins from Indoor Organic Gardens of Poughkeepsie. Sulforaphane works in a lot of the pathways that are necessary to beat these cancers that are associated with certain genes, like the BRAT gene, or the, I'm trying to think, you might even say like the BRAC gene, things like that. But you can see what genetic problems people have that make them more susceptible to a cancer, and what are the drugs, what pathways are the drugs using that are working best for this particular thing. And you might say, but Becky, the drugs don't work. And people, well, the drugs have problems because they have to isolate the drug out, what's working in the botany, in the plant, out and make a drug out of it synthetically in order to patent it and make money. Pau d'Arco being one of the best examples of that. And I know I've said this a million times, but I just have to say it for those of you who may not have not heard it. So it's Lapachol and Pau d'Arco that kills the cancer. Big Pharma identified that, realizes that. They made a drug called Lapachol to treat cancer, and it was so toxic they couldn't even run a trial with it. And that's because the whole plant has the other things within it that mitigate toxicity, that stop side effects and prevent side effects. So we could be using, with the knowledge Big Pharma has and science have with how to treat cancers, we could be doing it without killing people in the process. And that's what I do here. That's how I work with cancer here. And I'm, really bold about saying that, because we have a reputation. I have a reputation for having very good results with cancer. It's even recognized in the medical community here among some. So I will say that this is why we're using the same science. We're just not making it toxic. So this is where botany comes in. This is where herbal medicine shines. You just have to know how to use it. And so this is, again, more fun. But when we talk about, I just want to say, when we talk about herbal medicine and cancer, we're talking about the same things. And I used to be very reticent about being bold and upfront and saying this on something like YouTube, or, or out there saying that we get good results with cancer. Have I seen cancer cured? Yes. Yes, and more than once. So I'm not going to be shy about it anymore, because people need to know. And if somebody sees this from the AMA or something and wants to come after me, well, they can do that. But I'm not going to apologize for it. We're not going to apologize for doing things for people that they're failing in modern medicine, or that we're even doing it that they're successful in. We're not going to say that we can't do it because we're not you. We're just going to do it. Okay. All right. Now, so the black-eyed Susan, speaking of Susan, American used root tea with blue cohosh for indigestion, flower poultices with blue giant or aniseed and a goldenrod species applied to burns. Cooked spring greens were eaten for good health. Was once sold as a balsamic, diuretic, and tonic, and recommended for urinary catarrh. Okay, so that's like the old, but anyway, what I did was I went through and I found more information. So this makes this a lot more interesting. And you can do this later too. You can just like go and look at your PDF that's in the newsletter. And if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube later on, you can just go down to the description, and the link to my newsletter will be there, and then you'll be able to get to all these things. So we have the black-eyed Susan, more than just a pretty flower. Oh, I just found this today, so I did not copy that. I just found this today. I was scrambling. It was probably about 25 after 11 when I was trying to fill this out a little bit. But more than just a pretty face, I said. So let's look at some of the things that it can do for us. Black-eyed Susan, where do they grow? Some other names they have. That's the other thing in herbal medicine. You have to know that some people know something by one name, some people know it by another. This is known as orange coneflower, what is known as purple coneflower. I know. Echinacea. So anyway. Historical significance. So the Native American communities. Okay, this is how we had many tribes up in the whole Stoddard, in this part of our, well, probably all over the whole country, but New Hampshire definitely has a Native American history. And medicinal properties. They used various parts of the plant, including the roots and the leaves, to treat a range of ailments such as colds, fevers, and snake bites. It was considered a valuable addition to their herbal pharmacopoeia. Okay, now you can see the things that I shop for. You just saw containers. And this is so funny. Nashville wraps. I just bought bags for our products, bags that people take. We love the bags, so you can see. Oh, and there's that. So when you pull this up, it's going to put up there whatever you normally purchase. Okay, and then it's so annoying. I tried to actually make PDFs of these things, but I didn't have time because I hate it when stuff pops up. I mean, I could do this on my website, and you make a lot of money doing that, right? You let people advertise on your website. I would just never do that to you. I hate that. Anyway, address conditions such as colds, flu, sore throats, and fevers. Anti-inflammatory properties may also provide relief for conditions like arthritis and skin irritations. But the seeds are considered to be toxic and should not be consumed. That's the other thing. You want to know what you're doing. Like, because I'm saying this, like, don't just go out to your perennial garden and clip, and, oh, this must all be good for me. Make yourself up a tea. You might not be doing the right thing, right? So know what you're doing first. It's just like mushrooms. Don't just go out in the woods and start indiscriminately eating mushrooms, right? Preparation methods. This is really cool. How to make things, how to prepare the roots, how to use them. Tea, poultice, tinctures. So we could now you might say, well, Becky, why don't you do that? Why don't you make a black-eyed Susan tincture? Well, because for the things I want to do, I already have other plants I'm using. That's the wonderful thing about plant medicine. There's like a bazillion plants that have overlap and work in the same thing. So I don't need to figure out, and I probably won't find a reputable powder if I found any powder online of black-eyed Susan, and I use dried powders. I don't use fresh plant. But anyway, you could, making teas, you could make your own small amount of tincture, right? Poultice. If you have a cut, a big pimple or a bug bite on your skin, you can turn the roots into a mushy paste and put it on your skin. It might help because the plant can fight germs and reduce swelling. I would use plantain, but try it, especially if you are herbal inquisitive. How to use the leaves. Okay, so that was what we were using there. What that must have been the roots. Okay, this is the leaves. Tea, salves, can help if your skin is inflamed, red, or swollen. Using the flowers, flower heads can be dried or whatever, and added to non-culinary items like potpourri for their appearance. I wonder if you can eat them. Making tea. Well, don't use the tea as often as the roots or leaves. Some people might help it relax and boost your immune system. The flower petals. The petals, right? But not that little center thing that has all the seeds in it. Okay, there's that. And then safety and precautions. Yep, be informed, just be careful. Okay, so that one is done. And you can find other information too, if you're more interested in the black-eyed Susan. But this is butterfly weed. You see that all over the place, and it's really cool because the butterflies really do love it. These are our own photos taken up in that were taken in Windham. And pleurisy root. So again, right there, you know it's going to be something to do with the lungs. see what else we can find here. Butterfly weed, pleurisy root, part of the milkweed family. And we're going to get into the common milkweed in a moment. I'm sure nobody is. Okay. Toxicity. It contains substances that are toxic to both humans and livestock if consumed by either humans or livestock. Toxic symptoms may include bloating, breathing difficulties, dilated pupils, but all of the parts of the plant are toxic. Blah, blah, blah. That's wonderful. Some insects cannot tolerate these plants' toxins, which is interesting. The monarch butterfly larvae can eat the leaves, accumulate those toxins inside of its body and suffer no ill effects. And those accumulated toxins actually protect the monarch butterfly from its predators. See, isn't that cool? We've talked about that before, like we were talking about sea buckthorn berry and how sea buckthorn grows in blistering heat and sun, and how it creates all of these antioxidants within itself in order to protect itself from getting burnt to a crisp. And so that's what it does for us too, right? Drying out. But it says here, it's interesting, despite this plant's toxicity, both the Native Americans and the early European settlers used this plant as medicine. The roots and leaves were used for making decoctions. That's like infusions and tea. So that's all based on what part of the plant you're using and how long you let it simmer. The difference between a tea, an infusion, and a decoction. The roots were collected in the fall and the leaves were collected when in foliage. Both the roots and the leaves were used either fresh or dried. The plant was boiled and was used internally as an alterative, an anodyne, that's anti-pain, and astringent, a carminative, so for the stomach, a diaphoretic to make you sweat, astringent to be drying. So, so if you had, like, say, you would use astringent tannins, like if you had diarrhea, right? An emetic to make you vomit. Oh, great. Probably because it's toxic. But if you needed to induce vomiting, an expectorant, a purgative, again, a sedative, a stimulant, a subtonic, and a vasodilator. It was also used mainly for treating bronchial and pulmonary ailments such as asthma, bronchitis, catarrh, consumption, influenza, pneumonia, and pleurisy, also called pleurisy root. It was also used internally for treating stomach and intestinal ailments such as colic, dysentery, dyspepsia, whatever. Anyway, edible and other uses. The Native Americans had some edible uses for the plant. The flower buds, the young seed pods, and the young shoots were sometimes boiled as a pot herb. Even the tubers were used as food after they were boiled a few times to remove their toxins. See, got to know what you're doing. Now, how they ever figured that out without having many people die while getting it right, I don't know. I just don't. If it's instinctual or what, I'm not sure. But anyway, the flowers were sometimes used as a sugar substitute. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it's so fascinating. And it's interesting because I don't use pleurisy root in my medicinal armamentum, my botanical, what we call pharmacopoeia, or my armamentum, or, my jars on the shelves. I do stay away from things that, like coltsfoot, that is very medicinal, but can also cause problems in some people, because we have many other things that do. Lobelia, I stay away from, very good for the lungs as well. Why? Yes. Can we use it safely? Yes. And I'm not saying all the plants that I use cannot be used improperly, but if we have other plants that are safe and you're getting the same effect, then why use one that might be iffy for somebody? So that's generally the way I approach the herbs that I use in my formulas. So you're not going to get something that might be, okay, like coltsfoot. I could put it in my pleurisy root and lobelia. I mean, they all could go in my my formulas for breathing. Like I have a breathe easy, but I've got formulas in there that work for those things, and they work very nicely. Osha root and other things such as that. So so you just you can do things and not worry about the toxicity. That's what I like to do. And if you purchase things from me and ingest them, you probably are happy to know that too. Daylily. So in China, Traditional Chinese medicine for mastitis. Mastitis is like when you have a breast infection. That can happen to a woman who's breastfeeding. Breast cancer and a variety of other ailments. In China, the root tea is used as a diuretic in turbid urine. Okay, turbid urine might be like your urine's really cloudy and stuff like that. So bladder infection. Edema, that's swelling. Usually of edema can be anywhere, but a lot of people get edema around the ankles. To treat poor or difficult urination, jaundice, nosebleeds, leukorrhea, whitish vaginal or cervical discharge, uterine bleeding, a poultice for mastitis, folk cancer remedy for breast cancer. So again, how they were doing these things way back when. The root extracts are antibacterial, useful against parasites, and diuretic. We just talked about that. The edible flower buds you can eat the flower buds. So these grow, they might be in your garden. So those are some of those edibles that you can put on your salads and stuff. Diuretic, and astringent properties in jaundice, and to relieve oppression and heat in the chest. This is how medical language used to. When I've read a couple of chapters by Matthew Wood, herbalist, we go back to he'll quote some of the old timey things, and you really get some different ways they described what's going on in the body. The roots and young leaf shoots are considered potentially toxic. So again, know that stuff before you do. You found out you can eat the petals, but that doesn't mean you can just like chop up the leaves and stick them in your salad. And again, there's a learn more page on that. See what they have to say here about medicinal use more in the modern time. Flower, fruit. A lot of nice photos there. Oh, here we go. Traditional uses and benefits of orange daylily, diuretic, so for fever, laxative properties. Anti-pain, the flowers are anti-pain, but anti-emetic, so anti-nausea and vomiting. Anti-spasmodic, depurative, febrifuge, that's fever, and sedative. I'm not sure what depurative is. Flower extract is used as a blood purifier and as an anti-pain for women in childbirth in China. Tea, diuretic, rhizome. Rhizome is the upper parts of the roots. Cancer. Arsenic poisoning, antidote. Blood purifier. The rhizome, antimicrobial. Anti-parasitic worms that cause filariasis. Juice of the roots, okay, blah, 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 blah. So you can, powdered orange daylily root and leaves are taken before meal to treat edema, swelling caused by fluid retention. Orange daylily root juice mixed with fresh ginger juice is taken to treat bleeding from 5 sense organs or subcutaneous tissue. It's very interesting because I have a woman who, for years, she's got this thing every now and then, something will cause her ear to bleed. She's actually having an MRI, although it's been happening for years and nothing has progressed or anything, but she'll just say every now and then she feels something a little crusty and she'll find a little bit of dried blood and we don't know where the blood's coming from. Very interesting. Passing urine, if you have difficulty passing urine, blah, 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 blah. Decoction of orange daylily root can be used in treating irregular or abnormal menstruation. So very fascinating, at least to me. Okay. That brings us to jewelweed. So jewelweed, we have the oil here and we make a soap bar, a bath bar that helps with the poison ivy rash. And that's because it antidotes the urushiol, which is the poison that from oak. Urushiol is the poison in poison ivy, poison oak, and poison sumac that causes that horrible blistering, terribly infuriatingly painful and drive you nuts rash. I've never had it. Some people are not sensitive, and I think must be the case because this is right up in this was in our backyard when I was living there. And here you can see poison ivy grows right next to it. Poison ivy it's so interesting that the antidote, the way God set up creation, the antidote grows right next to the poison. And people would have, people like the Native American Indians and probably the early European settlers as well. Because, people relied on botany, and they relied on botanical medicine, the old apothecaries out of Europe. Apothecary actually is the name of a person, not a place. So, a lot of pharmacies, and even my dad's was called the apothecary, but the apothecary is actually the pharmacist, not the shop. A little bit of trivia there for you. Okay, so it works really well. And I tell people, like, if you want to just have your own on hand, when you see it when it's in bloom, and it's a beautiful flower that actually pops. Whoops, I didn't want to go there. It actually makes a little squeak when you pop it. And they're very, very beautiful. It's in my newsletter. That's why I wanted to go there. But yeah, there it is. You can see it in greater detail there. A very, very beautiful flower. But you could take this, and you could just take all this stuff and chop it up and make a nice tea, a nice concentrated tea out of it. And I see that a hand is up, and I finally looked. Hopefully it's not been up for very long, but let me see where that is. Jean, okay. Okay, I'm asking you to. Hi, Jean.
Yep. Hi. When I was a kid, I was very allergic to poison ivy, and you could even get it from off the dog's fur. The dogs would go into the woods and rub against it and get the oil on them, and they would, you'd hug the dog or pet the dog and stuff, and you could get it from that.
Yep, you sure can. In fact, thank you for that comment. I'm just gonna answer, talk on the air now. So you can actually, you need to, when you've been exposed to poison ivy, you need to take your clothing, all your clothing that might have been exposed, because the oil is absorbed and things like that, like Jean was talking about. You end up with the oil. Now let me just, okay. So you end up with the oil. So dermatologist told me years ago that what you need to do is take a cup of powdered milk and put it in the laundry, do your laundry with your detergent or whatever you use normally, but put a cup of powdered milk in there to get rid of that oil. Otherwise you keep infecting yourself. The blisters do not infect you. Like if you touch your child with your blisters, you don't pass it that way. It's the oil that passes it. And like Jean was making a very good point, it stays in the dog's fur. So honestly, you need to wash your dog in powdered milk, I guess would be the lesson from that whole thing. But anyway, it's a very pretty flower. And you can do that. You can make yourself a nice tea and then put it in ice cube trays. And then when they're frozen, pop them out, put them in baggies, and you'll have it, you could just keep it in your freezer if you have room in there to keep something year after year, or you can, use something that's pre-prepared like what we have. But anyway, you can definitely do that. And there's more to be seen about that. This is common milkweed. So American Indians used root tea as a laxative and as a diuretic for gravel, kidney stones. We use gravel root for that. And dropsy, they applied the milky latex to warts, moles, ringworm. I do remember, yeah, that's very interesting. And when you go and you cut into the stem, you will see that latex. Root tea expectorant is diuretic and induces sweating. For asthma, rheumatism, latex as a gum, no thank you. Silky seed tassels, blah, 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 blah. Folk cancer remedy, caution, potentially toxic, contains cardioactive compounds. So of course, it's nothing that I would be using. None of this stuff do I use in my formulas. But this, I remember this false lily of the valley, or otherwise known as Canada Mayflower. That's one of the ones, like, I learned the love of nature when I was just a small child. I would go, we had paths all through the house we were living in when I was very small. Well, after we moved from here where I was born, but I was 2 when I moved from there. But when I was in my small years up until say 5th grade. So I was really young, but back then your parents didn't worry about you if you went off into the woods for a little while, even if you were just, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old, because they knew you knew the paths and you'd come back and whatever. So I did that a lot. And I always remember, because you're close to the ground when you're a kid, right? You're so close to the ground, you're short. And so you notice things that you don't notice as an adult when you're out walking along paths. And I always remember, and this one is very commonly seen in the woods. So that photo, even though it's really not a gorgeous photo because of all of the dead stuff underneath, it brings me nice memories. Keeps the kidneys open during pregnancy. That's what the American Indians used it for, headaches and that. There's a gargle for sore throats. You just thought it was just something in the woods that you step on. Root uses a good luck charm to win games. Well, that I would love. Okay, well, maybe I'll rethink that. Maybe I will use a little bit of that. Folk expectorant for coughs, soothing to sore throats. And again, you can see more. Wild bergamot, purple bee balm. That's the Monarda fistulosa. I did a program on not long ago, and you have the full. So I put Matthew Wood's chapter in there. That's where that links to. Again, it is really remarkable, and people have told me, I've had good feedback about that. Somebody was telling me they did not have, what did they not have since they started using it just the other day? And I was like, thank you for telling me that, because I think it was a bladder issue. But anyways, wonderful. I use it. It's supposed to keep you really in tune with the beauty around you, and especially of music and things like that. If you took it for no other reason than that, that would be worth it. Common plantain. So I did a whole program on that. Plantain is really fantastic, and that Matthew Wood's chapter is there as well. Ox-eye daisy. Yeah, daisy, another one you just think, oh, that's a pretty flower. It's not serious. Oh, not a serious flower like Echinacea. It's just a pretty daisy. Anti-inflammatory and spasmodic, relieving components, may cause contact dermatitis or so it can cause like an allergic kind of thing that some people might be allergic to, but this was kind of fun. This is botanical, a modern herbal, and they used it for acts similarly to chamomile and recommended for night sweats. Good for chronic coughs, boiled leaves and stalks and sweetened with honey. They make an excellent drink for the same purpose. That sounds tasty. In America, the root is employed successfully to checking the night sweats of pulmonary consumption. So again, and this all comes out of like Europe, the botanical.com, a lot of this stuff. So then again, not so much the American Indian stuff as the Greeks, Europe, and Russia. Here we have. Okay. And then goldenrod. So goldenrod, American Indians, this is the last one, use the root for burns, flower tea for fevers, snake bites, crushed flowers were chewed for sore throats. Contains quercetin. We've talked about that recently, and you all are familiar with that. A compound reportedly useful in treating hemorrhagic nephritis. Well, that's not what I use quercetin for. I didn't even I don't know if I've ever thought of hemorrhagic nephritis, bloody kidney infection. I've definitely never thought of quercetin for a bloody kidney or for a kidney infection at all, but maybe now I will. Seeds eaten as a survival food can cause allergies, though most allergies attributed to goldenrod are actually ragweed. So here's a really good page on goldenrod. So goldenrod benefits the bee's knees for allergies, sinus infections, and urinary tract infections. an herb for urinary tract infections, a sinus formula for allergies, colds, and flu, a roundup of herbal recipes. So this is a good page. You might want to go there and check that out. Goldenrod just grows prolifically. And I just wanted to say, if you're wanting to know am I sure I'm getting goldenrod and not ragweed, you can see on this page kind of the difference in what they look like. So goldenrod is very, bright yellow flowers, very voluminous in its foliage. Okay. Ragweed has inconspicuous flowers that produce small, lightweight pollen that blows in the wind. So you can easily see that. So you know, if you're out in the field, that you're not getting confused about what is what. Okay. Well, that brings me to the end of that. It's certainly not an exhaustive presentation of, by any means, of the the plants of North America. And, but I will say that it is, it's interesting, and, dig in more if you're interested in this kind of thing, but it does make those walks outside a little bit more interesting, especially, just a little bit more appreciative of what's there. And based on the things we've talked about here, the parts of the plants, whether it be something like that you can eat the petals or things like that, go for it. Or making your own jewel weed something. Go ahead. And it looks like Jean again. Hi, Jean. Jean? Oops. I'm trying to unmute her, but it looks like, well, I don't know. Jean, I can't get you. I'm trying to, but anyway, so great having you all here. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. It's a beautiful, at least where I am, it's a beautiful summer weekend, and it should be a lot of fun. So take care. Next week, I think I really wanted to talk today about, I was going to go into something called adenosine monophosphate. Doesn't wildflower sound a lot brighter than that? But adenosine monophosphate, otherwise known as protein kinase. Adenosine monophosphate protein kinase, otherwise known as AMPK, which I wanted to use. I wanted to talk about using for, again, anti-aging, blood sugar control, and more specifically energy, and then even maybe more important to a lot of people, weight loss. What goes missing as we get older? Our metabolism is different than it was when we were younger. Why is that? AMPK might be part of that, the answer to that question. So I'm going to talk about that next week, and maybe depending on how in-depth that is, maybe something else as well. But again, thank you everyone for being with me. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend and a good week next week. And I'll be back next week.